Good morning, everyone. I am Preston Jones, and I'm proud to serve as your Dean of the H. Wayne Huizenga School of Business and Entrepreneurship. And I extend a hearty welcome to you on behalf of President George Hanbury and the entire faculty and staff of Nova Southeastern University. Welcome, and you're in for a treat. You absolutely are. This event is made possible through the generosity of the John H. Schnatter Family Foundation. And before we get started, I would like to introduce some of our very special guests. We have with us, and he was with us last time, and he's with us all the time, our friend, but most importantly, our past president, Dr. Abraham Fischler. Please stand. Moving forward with the VIP list, sitting to his right, Paul Salarulo. Paul Salarulo is a Board of Trustee member. To his left is Sherry Friedlander. Sherry Friedlander, please, a Board of Governor member, Sherry Friedlander. And sitting next to her is Lawson Dutton. Welcome, Lawson. We also have Robert Miller from the Board of Governors. Robert Miller, stand please. And I'd also like to recognize a few other very special guests. And I'd like for the faculty to please stand. Faculty, all faculty members, please stand, be recognized. Thank you so much. We also have some other very special guests. You've listened to and you've waved hands to the VIPs, but we have some other special guests. I like to call them VISs. These are very important sharks. Sharks in the room. Fins up. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. And to get things started, I would like to introduce or show you a brief video of our honored guest and speaker today.
Because I'm not a business person, I'm a scientist primarily and an artist secondarily, but the two combined into this unique combination. I've had to learn the business part of it.
Guy Harvey is a proud 10th generation Jamaican whose British ancestors were given land there in the 1600s following the English Civil War. It was an idyllic childhood, growing up on his father's cattle farm. But like the generations before him, at the age of 8, he was sent away to England for boarding school.
We only got to get home once a year. I got very homesick. Part of my strategy was to paint a lot and draw a lot of the things I was familiar with from home to relieve that tension, so to speak. And I was encouraged by a very good art teacher I had at the time. It's the only formal training that I ever had.
Guy was instead drawn to marine science, earning high honors in marine biology at Aberdeen University in Scotland in 1977. He then returned to Jamaica to continue at the University of West Indies, where he obtained a doctorate in fisheries management. During this time, Guy joined the Jamaica Defense Force Coast Guard. He began putting his hobby to use, selling paintings here and there, but remained focused on science and began to teach with a career goal to head up a marine lab managing fisheries research.
That's what I planned to do until during these marlin tournaments in the early 80s. I would put up a display of maybe 10 or 12 paintings and sell them for 25 bucks, 50 bucks, shuddering now. And this guy, Scott Boyd from Boyd's Tackle came down, and Charlie Foreman, and they were fishing and said, hey, we can put you in touch with a man who can use these. And I never looked back. It was just as simple as that.
He was then encouraged by Charlie and Scott Boyd to create a series of t-shirts bearing his art. Guy wasn't immediately convinced.
Guy didn't see how it would work, and nobody thought you could sell a t-shirt for $15 or $16. We had sold, I think, 3,500 of them. That proved that there was markets.
We set up, most importantly, the copyright program. And I'll never forget saying to Charlie, wow, this is expensive. I don't know if I can afford it. He said, Guy, this is the best money you'll ever spend. To this day, people have a hard time copying my artwork and getting away with it. And we set a precedent early on by following up on a few infringements.
To this day, Guy Harvey shies away from calling himself an entrepreneur. But the fact is, Guy is a competitive person, driven to excel at his craft and continually envision new goals for the future.
It's in trying to anticipate trends now, that's where the challenge is, and to keep the business ahead of trends or set new trends is where the leadership is required now.
So in 1999, the Guy Harvey Research Institute, GHRI, was established at NSU's Oceanographic Center, fulfilling a dream of Guy's to make an impact in marine science. Then, in 2008, Guy started the Guy Harvey Ocean Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to funding scientists and educators as they develop new strategies for fisheries management and the marine environment. To this mission, he's devoted both hands-on scientific work and fundraising. Today, Guy's business ventures and license agreements are highly diversified, with 15 licensees in various categories, including publishing, a new line of women's clothing, a Fort Lauderdale-based hotel branding company he co-owns, and one of the most recent exciting developments, Guy's art is to be featured on the Norwegian Cruise Line's newest and largest ship to date, Norwegian Escape, scheduled to launch 2015. And if that's not enough, Guy has produced a television series and 5 documentary films, many of which have won prestigious awards. And many are centered around Guy's first love, marine science and conservation.
Guy Harvey's team is with him. They are Antonio Fins, Greg Jakowski, and Harvey Tolson. Colleen, I'm sorry. Would you please stand and be recognized? You know, you may already know that there are over 26,000 students here at NSU studying all disciplines and programs. You may already know that there are 485 species of sharks, including the Mako shark, our mascot. But you will know after this presentation there's only one Guy Harvey. Guy Harvey, please join us.
Well, good morning, everybody. How's it going? You staying dry out there? Thank you for having me here today. I want to thank, obviously, Nova Southeastern University. President Hanbury is not here, but I have to tell you I had a fantastic fishing trip with him. No, not a trip, an expedition with him. Just a few weeks ago in Panama, and where he caught 3 blue marlin, a bunch of sailfish and sharks and so on. And while we've known each other for 20 years, it's the first time I've ever spent 6 days in a row with him. And I have to tell you what a resilient, strong person and character he is, because it's not easy to go out there and catch all those big fish. So you're being led by a true angler and sportsman, which is great. I want to just make a note of Dean Dick Dodge, who is here, and who is Dean of the Oceanographic Center. Thank you, Dean. And, of course, Dr. Mahmood Shivji, who is the director of the Guy Harvey Research Institute, with whom we've worked for, 16 years now, 17 years. And we've been at the cutting edge of some very exciting discoveries in the open ocean. So thank you, gentlemen, very much. And to all the other backup staff, Jade and everybody, we had a fantastic event here a few months ago, and thanks again for all of that. Okay, well, let's proceed. How do I work this thing? Left or right? You see, I'm a painter. So, which is next? This one. All right, great, thanks. I'm going to compress into about half an hour, 30 years of hard work. And there we go. So background, well, you saw in that video, it was really good. I grew up in Jamaica, farming, long history of that. Great place to be. I was just there 2 weeks ago for a big family reunion. It was It was a good childhood. We spent a lot of time fishing. We started out on the bottom right in that little canoe there, so we all got burnt to hell, burnt to a crisp. This is in the days before sunblock was invented. My dad got lucky, and we went fishing the middle boat here, which is a wooden hull boat made in America. And he eventually got given that as a second wedding present. So we spent a lot of time fishing. And of course, it was very inspirational for me, as it turned out. And you know, those early experiences formed the basic building blocks of what I do now. I was doing a lot of sketching, and my mother was a great artist, though she never took it anywhere. But she helped me a lot and enabled me to continue and be perceptive and look at nature. And of course, I loved the big fish stories and spent all my time fishing. I read, well, she gave me Ernest Hemingway's book to read at the age of 12 or 13, The Old Man and the Sea, which, as you know, is the world's most famous fishing story. To this day is just an incredible story. So I have capitalized on that. I've been to Cuba many times. So it's authentic, my renditions of the events that took place there. It comes from my personal experience. And in Jamaica, we grew up on small boats, catching big fish on handlines. So one thing led to another. So while pen and ink work was the genesis, how I got going, and it was very necessary for, in those days, in the 70s and 80s, you were recording scientific works using pen and ink illustrations and some photography, unlike today when you've got all these gadgets you can play with and copy everything in a millisecond. So my training was as a fish portrait artist rather than an artist. I mean, an illustrator is what I'm looking for, if you get me. So that's where I learned to draw and paint. It's not from going to an art school like many of my contemporaries have. And I learned, having done pen and ink, to add watercolor, mostly because people requested it. I ventured out into acrylic painting, into oil painting, and of course I still do a lot of photography, which is considered an art form. So here are just some examples. A very topical species of lionfish. This is the more illustrative dot style. We call it stippling in the art business. Very, very time consuming, and therefore it's laborious. In fact, many people ask me, what's the worst part about painting? And it's this repetitive nature of that, you can get into. Watercolors, my favorite. Fast, colorful, instant results, and you can do above and below scenes very quickly. I did this, by the way, this piece for the Caribbean Challenge Initiative quite recently. Acrylics and oils. I love the underwater stuff, the big animals, the big species. It's more effective done in acrylic or in oil painting. And here again, this is a 15-foot-long oil painting of a black marlin. And so I matched the media. I taught myself to match the media to the subject matter and to the size of the piece I was doing. And of course, the big oceanic species are better represented closer to lifestyle. So that's an intro into the art. The art is the key to the whole business. And we have now, after all these years, we have 5 or 6 different graphic artists who then take my work and interpret it, and I use that word loosely, because they become very good with today's technology at manipulating the art and doing some amazing things with it. So, it can be any number of different subjects. So here's just a range of different, can you see all right? It's a little bit light in here. I don't know if the lights can come down. All kinds of subject matter. And of course, as the art grew, I had to become more regional in my choices. And so I had to learn about fish that we don't have in the Caribbean, like redfish, and go and see them, and West Coast fish, and Northeast fish, and Northwestern fish. And so I had to expand my knowledge of subject matter over a period of time. So these are just some examples of contemporary pieces: oceanic whitetip, blue marlin, striped marlin. Freshwater, of course, is important. You have no idea how many people in America fish for bass and trout, and you have to appeal to them too. So here's a good selection of some good topics. Our friend the lionfish. Because I lived in Jamaica and was surrounded by, that's the national bird of Jamaica there in the middle, the streamer-tailed hummingbird, surrounded by these amazing creatures, they were just as exciting and as challenging to paint as fish. And of course, I discovered later in life that the women will buy the birds for themselves. They buy fish for their men. But if you really want to turn it into a business, you have to appeal to the women, earnestly. And so birds and flowers have fulfilled that category, so to speak. And they can be quite nice. So, all right. In the intro, you saw a little bit about the whole business of licensing, and we started way back in 1985, 86. I did the first Fort Lauderdale boat show. It was a sellout show, and thereafter, I sent, what am I saying? I started the Florida company and licensed T-shirts of Florida, who was then, that company was then owned by Raleigh Working, who to this day is still a very great angler. It's called Many World Records. And through his friend, Scott Boyd, from whom he bought all his fishing tackle, we started this business. And for an artist, it was a strange transition to make because they were requesting the use of your art for a fee, and it was explained to me that your art will continue to work for you even while you're sleeping. And that's absolutely true, because that's what happened. So the licensing thing was set up, and I worked with TSF for 17 years. We did really well. It was, good times. We did a lot of boat shows and fishing tournaments, and I was on the road a lot and painting a lot of new stuff. And the copyright part of it, as we saw earlier, was very important because this work is unique at the time. Nowadays, with all the copying machines that you have and the ability to plagiarize, it didn't really exist in those days. And so we kind of predicted what would happen in the future. And we set a precedence very early on of being very strong about protecting copyrights. And it was costly, but it really worked. And so nowadays, we don't have that much of an issue. But in late 80s, early 90s, we were chasing manufacturers in Mexico, in Costa Rica, all sorts of other places, just to get them to stop copying my stuff. And it was exact copies, too. So the registration of all of that, the enforcement, the evolution of the signature on the pocket, which has stayed for nearly 29 years I've been doing this. So that has remained the sort of signature Guy Harvey logo. It's been very effective. At the same time, Guy Harvey Publishing was formed, and this is the only in-house arm of the business that we have. It was easy to start. We printed our own posters, prints, limited edition. Of course, today we've gone into giclées, canvas giclées, all kinds of stuff. You can print on metal, on anything you want, and it looks fantastic. So the opportunities for an artist today to expand and grow the range of offerings is absolutely vast. And of course, you've got to go with the flow and have good stuff out there that people want to buy. So 1999, we are looking at a change. I signed up another manufacturer called American Fishing Tackle Company based on the West Coast. And they started printing the all-over Hawaiian-style shirt while TSF still had the contract for T-shirts. So I was running two manufacturers now. Having a company on the West Coast did present logistical problems because they are far removed, it's expensive to travel there, etc. And that issue remains to this day. The West Coast have a different mentality from the East Coast, too. I make no apology to anybody here from California. And so AFCO, it's a live contract, and we got at least another 5 years on that one to go. You build minimum performance requirements within the contracts. They have to do their part, I have to do my part, so it's a real partnership. And we share a lot of the marketing and other responsibilities, but the main responsibility of a manufacturer is to manufacture the article on a very good quality product. He's in charge of distribution and all the packaging and everything associated with that marketing and production. And of course, they've got to reach a minimum threshold every year. And that applies to everybody, whether they're making a coffee cup or they're making sunglasses or whatever it is, apparel. And so we keep them in check, so to speak, by the minimum performance levels. And they have to give 1% of gross back to the Guy Harvey Ocean Foundation. I'm not going to sign a contract with any licensee unless they're prepared to help us with the responsibility of research work and educational responsibilities that I have adopted. So that's the business side of it. Growing the brand, of course, as anybody knows in business, requires a lot of travel. We've done many, many consumer shows, some in Florida, some outside Florida. Tournaments. We started to license other products. We had some exciting projects going on, like the Florida Marlins from '93 to '97. That did really well for us. We signed up with the Collegiate Licensing Commission. That opened up a whole new area away from just fish into and away from the coast into other states. Some of those projects have been extremely good, especially here in Florida. We do a lot of seafood festivals now. We're associated with NASCAR and with country music concerts, so we're broadening our reach and our constituency greatly away from just the coastal lifestyle. We did television and documentaries. I did a 5-year series called Portraits from the Deep, which was on Outdoor Life Network, and then went to Versus. And for those of you who may be wondering, well, why do you do a TV series? Isn't it expensive? The answer is yes. Very expensive, and we never made any money out of it, and people ask me all the time, well, why do you keep doing it? You have such a busy schedule. You're adding to your schedule tremendously by going on 13 different shoots per year to gather the content for these shows. But it became a very useful branding tool for the brand. And while we did get some sponsors, it didn't cover the cost of doing the TV series, which over 5 years cost me around $2 million. So that was kind of written off as an advertising expense. But, there's an intangible there, In watching the TV shows, you learned about conservation, you learned about natural history, you learned about resource issues for the different species we focused on. And did it make anybody buy an extra T-shirt? There's no way of telling, but I think it did. So we pursued that. There's now a Guy Harvey magazine, again, a licensed item. You may have seen it already. Comes out quarterly. Very good. Lots of educational stuff, lots of great articles and photography. The restaurants, probably the most embarrassing license that I ever had. And in terms of lessons learned in life, you think you can read somebody and you think you can predict what they're going to do and so on. Well, I picked the wrong guy to do the licensing for restaurants. We had 7 going at one point, and they all collapsed simply because the concept was great. We had the retail component along with the F&B component, and people would spend as much money on buying licensed items as food and liquor. But he got too greedy and tried to expand too fast, and they didn't take care of the guys that he got going. And so he ran out of money. And it was a very unfortunate thing. I received many black eyes for that. But it's a great concept, and one day it's going to come back again. More recently, we signed a contract with Tag Heuer. This is a very high-end diving style watch. You probably know about Tag. And of course, as you saw in the video, an association now with Norwegian Cruise Line is, of course, a bit of a pinnacle in terms of a business achievement. For a company like Norwegian Cruise Line to come to you and say, hey, we'd like you to paint our ship, that's pretty nice. Let's face facts. So you've got a 1,100-foot-long billboard going around the Caribbean, and all the business that goes with that. The cruise ship business has been a very tough business to penetrate in terms of merchandising. We've always struggled with it, partially because of the way they set up their business. Their markups are so high, they've got a captive audience on board, and they charge an arm and a leg for the simplest of things. So for a Guy Harvey t-shirt, which is normally available at around $20, $21, $22 now, to have it up to 30 or 40, it wouldn't work. So we have to completely rethink about how we're going to manufacture, how we're going to have them distribute, and what kind of royalty we're going to charge, and just make it work. So it's going to work, and my team are on this, and we're going to sharpen our pencil and get it to work. Because I'm going to spend time on these ships, not only generating the for-profit side of the business, but also we're going to use the cruise ships as a platform for educational messages. We're going to have all our conservation videos and documentaries shown. We're going to have onboard presentations. We're going to have in-house TV and all that stuff, as well as art shows. So the cruise ship industry, I'm looking forward to greatly, as everybody asks me, well, what's next? Well, this is next. This is going to be good. We're going to master this, and we're going to conquer this, and we're going to do very well. And it's going to help all aspects of the business. All right, so there's just a range of the different products. The apparel, of course, is still the major licensee. It always will be, though we're finding some of the other licensees, like Tervis tumblers, are doing extremely well. Those lifetime guarantee, indestructible drinking containers. Some things do well, some are okay, but you have to offer a cross-section of merchandise to be effective in a retail store. If you're going to ask people like Bell's department store, can you have a Guy Harvey store concept within your own department store? And so the impact on the consumer is going to be much greater if everything is in one spot: men's, women, kids apparel, accessories, home accessories, beach accessories, and so on, all in one spot. So while some may not be very effective in generating income, the overall composition is very effective in terms of the visual impact that it makes. And Bell's is just, I'm quoting Bell's because they're one of our largest accounts. They're here in Florida, and we've been loyal to them. They've been loyal to us over many, many years. But we're taking the same concept to the Carolinas and to the Gulf Coast through other large big box companies. So conservation is good for business. I've always said that if you embrace conservation, research and conservation, your company is going to look better in the eyes of the public, and people are going to pick you over the competition if you have any kind of green approach to your business and your marketing. And so we've taken that to an extreme, because that's what I'm all about. I'm about generating the knowledge, the data, so that you can educate people, and once people are educated, you can effectively achieve conservation. And so it's a message that if it doesn't come through now, it didn't come through in the talk, I'm telling you now that conservation is good for business. And the association with Nova Southeastern University and the Oceanographic Center here have played a huge role in achieving what I wanted to do. And so thank you guys, all of you, for that. We do collaborate with other people, but this is where our base is, this is where my heart is, and as long as I'm around, this is our MO, this is what's going to be going on. As you know, we have a wonderful new center, the university does, and it's going to be, that's where we're based, where Mahmood works and where Dick works, and it's pretty impressive if you haven't been there. So just to jump into that a little bit, we put quite a bit of the for-profit results into this research work, because as I said, we need the data, we need the knowledge, but it's also very exciting work to do. You're out on the water, you're dealing with big animals, and it's very cool to be involved with that. So I mentioned Dr. Shivji here, Dr. Brad Weatherby from the University of Rhode Island, and there are many other people with whom we collaborate nowadays. The funding comes, as I said, mostly from the licensing programs and from fundraisers that we do. And we have that wonderful new building. So the GHOF was formed many years after the Research Institute, partially to become more autonomous and get more active in fundraising. Whereas Mahmoud does a great job with the research work and always will, we wanted to get other sources and other ways to generate money. And actually, we do collaborate with people outside of the university too, simply because we can't do everything at NOVA. Generating income. So here we go, specialty license plates. That has worked well. We've had a specialty license plate for many years. We're changing it now to the lower one here with the dolphin on it. And we've also had a good relationship with the Florida Lottery. And again, it's a licensing program where I license the use of my artwork for the Florida Lottery to do what they do, and they pay a very small but significant royalty to the foundation. And that also worked with South Carolina. Now, all that money, every cent of it went back into the state of Florida over the last 2 years that we've been doing it, or back to the state of South Carolina. And that's the premise on which we sign these agreements with the respective lottery operators. I'm not touching that money, promise you. It ain't coming anywhere near me. My wife said, what, you're endorsing gambling now? I said, absolutely not. That money is going right back into marine research work and educational projects that would not have happened if we didn't do this. So she's one of my heftiest critics, I have to tell you, in terms of, business ethics. So Anna, I won't say anything else. She's not here to defend herself. But keeps me on the straight and narrow. So we also depend on private donations, and they are, few and far between in the last few years because of the economic situation, but they're starting to look up a little bit. Remember, this is in addition to what we already contribute through the licensing programs. The Tag Heuer project in Cayman, the watch is limited to the Cayman Islands only, but they're giving 5% of retail back to the foundation. Now, they've already given $20,000 this year, which is fantastic, found money. And Norwegian Cruise Line, I didn't give them an art charge. They wanted me to pay them to put my art on the ship. We said, no way, you're going to pay us. So it's a nice thing to say to somebody, well, you can make a donation to the foundation, because everybody likes that. They, to pay Guy Harvey, nah. Pay his foundation, sure. So it's a no-brainer. And so it works whenever we're in a sticky situation. We just ask for a donation to the foundation, and it works. All right, well, you saw that already. I just heard that they laid the keel last week. Pretty cool. The ship's going to arrive here in the first week in November next year, 2015, and there's going to be an inaugural cruise, and then, proper cruises. So that the first cruise will be like Cruise to Nowhere, finding your feet, working out the problems. You're welcome to come along. And then the next one will be Eastern Caribbean routes. So it's going to be nice. So this is some of the ads, well, a copy of some of the ads we're doing now with Tag Heuer and with some other people. But in diving with Mako sharks, this is our university's mascot, by the way, that guy there with the big teeth. We can generate, some excitement in these new lifestyle ads that we're putting out. And this is done by my graphic design team, which is fantastic. So last year, you can see a list of all the people who benefited from the grants that we gave out. And you see a lot of them are in Florida, some in Carolinas. So why the Cayman Islands? I moved there in 1999, primarily because of the violence in Jamaica. I lived in Kingston for 22 years. You saw I was at the university and then resigned to take up the art full time. I was in the Defense Force there for 10 years as a reserve, did my military time, but it was mostly spent at sea. And unlike the Coast Guard here, it's a military arm. It's not the Coast Guard arm. So we got proper Royal Navy training. But in spite of that, it was a tricky place to live, especially you know, I was traveling a lot, and there's all sorts of home security issues. And so we picked up a move to Cayman in '99, which was a good move. Family enjoyed it, great schools. Cayman has a large Jamaican population, so we retain all the good things about Jamaica, which are the culture, the music, the food, and the sense of humor that is unparalleled in the Caribbean. It's all there. And I started the Guy Harvey Gallery and Shop 8 years ago. It's become one of the highest rated shops in the country. And you look on your TripAdvisor reports and so on, and we get some fantastic reviews. So because I live there, we have a research and conservation effort in Cayman that involves the stingray research work, probably the most visited dive site in the world. No research work had ever been done on it, so Mahmoud and I got a project going from 2002 down there. We do research work on sharks, on billfishes. We do a lot of work on lionfish now. We've produced a fantastic documentary on Nassau groupers that helped conserve the species, an iconic Caribbean species, and we do work on artificial reefs. Much of that is sponsored by funding from the foundation here, but we're now generating funds in Cayman ourselves to help pay for these projects. So they're far-reaching and very effective and very meaningful. Just to show you, that's my son and my daughter there helping with the Stingray project, and we work closely with the Georgia Aquarium folks. And this year we've been doing ultrasound on the females, taking blood to get a better handle on their well-being, because they're supplemented by humans 365 days a year. And what effect is that having on their growth rate, their reproductive rate, their migrations? We don't know. And this is a $50 million business for the country. And so we need to find out how to make it sustainable, with no help from the government of Cayman, by the way, because they are broke. Tiger sharks, done a lot of work on them. Bahamas, Bermuda, Cayman, oceanic white tips, fantastic animal to dive with. Billfish, of course, we're doing tags in many different countries. Mexico, that's a sailfish with a tag. We just got a 12-month return from one of these animals, which is the longest sailfish track in the history of tagging sailfish. It went 26,000 kilometers in 12 months. And this project was co-financed by Virgin Unite, Sir Richard Branson's group there, and we're very pleased to be working with them. Lionfish, the issues surrounding lionfish, we support all the culling and the consumption, because we are the only controls available at the time, at present, until other natural predators are introduced or learn how to consume lionfish. Our consumption of them is going to somehow assist with their, just keeping them under wraps, really. That's the famous Nassau grouper. Little Cayman, 85 miles from where I live, hosts the largest spag site, that's spawning aggregation, in the entire Caribbean Sea, because we people have overfished them in every single other island, including Florida, for decades, and reduced them to an endangered species. And this is what a spag looks like, with 4,000 or 5,000 adult fish there to do their thing in January or February. So protection of these animals is critical, and we're deeply involved with that. Okay, so why do you support the foundation? As I said, we need more data to enable us to conserve better. We need data to educate ourselves so that we can become conservationists. We do that through fundraisers, private donations, license plates. You can support all of those. You can sponsor a scientific program, because doing nothing is just unacceptable. All right. Without scientific knowledge of the ecology of marine resources, sustainable management is impossible. Just to show you some of the excitement that we've generated this year alone, this is all done in Mexico, and we had a documentary on Destination America on Saturday that featured a lot of the footage that we shot here. George Schellinger, who lives in Florida, is our filmmaker and is responsible for getting most of these shots. And sailfish tagging, it's a 2-year study. The Oceanic whitetip, we just started it in Cayman, and the success story with this was that we got the fishermen to help us, the fishermen participating in a tournament, to catch oceanic whitetips, hold them. We'd reward them $500 or $1,000 to hold the fish until the chase boat came along. We took it off to scientists, applied the tags, and let the fish go. And that format really works, because we're coming from a fishing society that traditionally has really beaten up the sharks pretty badly. All right, white marlin, we've been there. So that was on last Saturday, and will be on this coming Saturday at 9 a.m. on Destination America, for those of you who get that network. So that's our foray into some good documentaries. Well, that's about it. I think I'm running out of time, aren't I? Yeah, we're going to play a couple of short videos, and then we'll go into Q&A afterward, okay? Yeah, so that's the one that's being shown on Saturday coming up. It's pretty exciting. It's a composite of all the different shark expeditions we've done in the last 3 years. And while we're on that topic, I just want to add that Dr. Shivji and I went to Bahamas in 2011 when they were having their issues about shark protection and whether or not to make the Bahamas archipelago a sanctuary. And it was the data that Dr. Mahmood Shivji provided that was the key evidence for the Bahamian government at the time to change their laws and protect sharks, not only because they're worth protecting from an ecological perspective, but also from a business perspective. They earn over $80 million a year in shark interactive programs. That's not killing a single animal. So that's good for business, good for tourism. And we do the same thing in Cayman with the stingrays. They're a bit more shark phobic. We haven't got to the shark stuff yet, but it just goes to show what can be done with the right research work and a government that has, the will to do the right thing. All right, can we do the other one? This was the one that was shown 2 weeks ago. So that was all about whale sharks and other associated species down in Mexico. And of course, that whole shark interactive program has become another boon for the Mexican economy on the Atlantic coast. And of course, not a single shark is attacked or hurt or killed. All right, Enough from me. Thank you. What is my take on global warming? Ooh. You'd have to start with the big one, wouldn't you? Well, you know, nature works in cycles. And so we're not fully aware of many of the cycles, but there is no doubt that the expanding human population has had a detrimental effect on our climate, as it has on all of our natural environment. You know, how you measure it and who measures it obviously plays a big part in the results. But what is far more important to me than climate change is the annihilation of species, particularly in the ocean, at a rate faster than they can reproduce. And we have put many large species, some of which were here on the screen, in serious jeopardy. And it's going to take decades for them to recover, even if we stop harvesting them now. And that is a far more serious problem than climate change to me.
One of the glaciers said 20 years this morning on the weather.
Okay.
Would be gone.
Quite possible.
What happens in the Caribbean and all those fish?
A lot may happen. We don't know. You know, they were growing grapes in Scotland when the Romans were there, so, you know, who knows? I mean, I know there are lots of things happening now that, you know, to make us more conscientious of what we stick into the atmosphere, but there are a lot more imminent problems than that. And population growth is the biggest threat.
We have a question here.
Yes.
Good morning, Mr. Harvey.
Good morning, sir.
I would like to find out what kind of skill set should or do the divers have to have in order to do that film with those sharks?
Okay. There's lots of places you can go and dive safely with sharks, especially in the Bahamas, because they have very advanced programs for that. And they also, more importantly, have a good resource base. So you barely need to, well, you need to be a qualified scuba diver, which is easy to achieve. And these shark interactive programs are accompanied by very good introductory talk about how to behave in their company. And the more advanced you go, it's pure common sense, the more you have to take care of your own behavior rather than, you know, watch for the shark's behavior. But basically, you're not giving them an opportunity to make a mistake. So you can start out as a snorkeler, as a beginner diver, in certain situations before you go into, you know, what you saw there.
Okay.
And I highly recommend it.
Cool.
That will change your life.
I bet.
You'll
Thank
have a
you
new
very much.
respect. Thank you.
Next question.
Yes.
Hi, I just want to say, first of all, I love the artwork in the UC. Every time I walk by, I'm like, man, it's just beautiful.
Thank you. I have to say that is the funnest part of the whole exercise.
Really?
And people ask, well, don't you get, you know, tired of painting? No, I love it. And every time I come back from a trip, like I just came back, you know, from Panama with President Hanbury, I'm full of new ideas of new stuff that I've seen, because you've never seen it all. You're always learning in nature. There's always something different to see. Sorry to interrupt your question.
No, that's good. I did want to know, like, do you actually draw on the ships, or do they print it, or?
It's going to be printed, let me think. It's going to be projected onto the hull of the ship, and then I think manually they paint it on. And they've had a little difficulty with the amount of detail that we provided, so they're trying to simplify some of it. But I very definitely am going to go there probably in June next year and give them a hand and have a couple of beers. Yep.
All
It's
right,
Germany
thank
after all, you know?
you. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. It's going to be cool, though. Yes.
Could you please describe the nature of your business relationship with the sandpiper on St. Petersburg Beach?
Yes. I didn't fully expand on the Guy Harvey outpost. The Guy Harvey outpost is a concept that Mark Ellett came up with, one of my good friends over many years. Charlie Foreman and Bill Shedd are all involved. Initially, we were going to find a remote destination similar to the place in Panama I go to all the time, that had just exceptional fishing and diving, family orientated, and would offer a research opportunity for Nova to get its teeth into. And we looked hard and fast at different places in the Bahamas, first of all, but there were all sorts of complications, mostly related with ownerships and titles and all that stuff. And so, you know, we didn't want to get bogged down with all that, so we looked closer to home, went to Florida. This is after 5 or 6 years. And, you know, we settled on Sandpiper right next to Tradewinds, owned by the same company. And so this was the perfect model for a conversion. So it's really a co-branding. I didn't spend the money, the owner spent the money. Refurbishing, making it Guy Harvey friendly, whatever you call it. It's on the beach, beautiful location. They have fantastic fishing there. They have all the other components. We have a great relationship with the University of South Florida going. The one thing missing is the diving, because I insisted that, you know, for your criteria, you've got to have good diving, good fishing, good research. So the diving is the one thing that they're going to work on. But it's worked. It's done really well from a business perspective. Guy Harvey Outpost company makes a very small percentage of the bookings that come through our company, and that's where it is. They have a large retail component, which is where we also make some money, because they buy shirts and other stuff, as we just explained. And so, as with the restaurants, the retail component is going to do most of the heavy lifting in terms of income generation. They also put in a brand new restaurant, spent a bag of money on that with a beautiful aquarium, 40,000-gallon aquarium, which is going to bring in a lot of people to have a look. And we helped catch fish to put that in. We did a TV show, we tanked. We did a lot of promotional stuff with that destination. And it's had a good summer. That's what we've heard. But these are long-term investments. And, you know, you're looking at 5, 10, 15, 20-year investment. So nothing we do nowadays is short-term.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Cool.
Hi, I have 2 questions.
Yes, hi.
But before I ask them, first of all, go England, born and raised in London.
Oh, great. Go Scotland. Anybody heard about that? Can you imagine?
Oh, you're from Scotland.
Can you imagine? We came this close a few days ago to becoming an independent country. Ridiculous.
But you don't sound Scottish.
No, it's ridiculous. Anyway.
Okay. So the first question, first question, I love the artwork in the UC, it's awesome, and I was wondering how many hours it took to do that.
That's a question I get asked a lot. Before I had the store in Grand Cayman, which is like having a baby, and I had 2 of them, so I'm telling you, really. I would paint around 10 hours a day, so every day, because there's always lots to do. And, you know, you've got to keep up with licensees and what they want. And when I get the time, I would paint for me, for what I wanted to do and stuff that I'd seen. And, of course, you know, the team that I have, the fantastic team that's only 10 minutes away from here, will take that art and make it into different stuff for different purposes, for whatever you need. And Todd Dawes, who works with Alex Lytle, who's my other graphic designer here, told me last year, I have so much art in the art library, I don't have to paint a single painting ever again.
So 10 hours a day for how many days?
Forever. No, so theoretically, I can go fishing and diving all I want when I'm at home now. But I went out on the boat on, what is today, Tuesday, on Sunday, and the mast on the bottom of the boat is about this long. And my brother who was there said, Guy, you should fire your staff. You should be out here fishing more often. You know, why aren't you fishing more often? So maybe it will come one day. You know, you reach a threshold where there's enough art out there.
Thank you.
So many options to do it. But those days of productivity, I work weekends after weekend after weekend to get stuff done, to meet deadlines. And I'm thinking those days are behind me just because of what is available nowadays and what these magicians can do with the artwork. So, but I still love painting, like I said, you know. And we get requests all the time, commissions from people to paint something for them that's, you know, recalls a fishing or a diving episode that they had, and that occurs quite frequently. So I'll never stop.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess my question is,
Nice shirt.
what advice would you give to a student who kind of has a dream of being a marine artist like yourself and kind of building how you built your brand, Guy Harvey, like where it started?
Well, I really can't answer that. I said nice shirt. Thank you for wearing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for your support. I've had to answer that question a few times recently on email interviews and so on. And what I say to them is, you have so many more resources available to you today than I had in the mid '80s, and especially, you know, what you can do with a website and the social media in terms of getting your message out there instantly, instead of doing all this flying and legwork and going through security lines and stuff like that. You must put all of that to work for you, because not only are you going to generate sales instantly without ever leaving your studio, wherever you are, you set up your shipping system, but you're going to have instant recognition if it's good, if people want it. I can't tell you how many days I spent on the road doing all these shows, lugging art over the place, lugging frames, smashing stuff stolen, you know, never-ending battle of just to get in front of people. Nowadays, you don't have to do that. It's really easy. So, and just the physics of the computer screen and the iPad with that bright light behind it, it makes your work look twice as good as it really is. And, you know, and so people have, there's a natural ability there to get it done, which, you know, I've got to that stage now, and thank goodness. But, and web sales are good. We do more sales nowadays on our website than we do from bricks and mortar stores. So, you know, try anything. Don't give up.
Thank you.
Hope that helps. Be strong. Yes, sir.
What ethical dilemmas have you faced with having a company based around sustainability and being sustainable?
None really, because I've been true to, you know, my original message, which is because I like fishing too, and I like fish consumption, about consuming sustainably and giving back. I don't know what else to say. You know, there are ways of fishing sustainably commercially. You know, I'm not against commercial fishing. It's just you have to understand the basic premise of sustainability, which is don't take a species faster than it's able to replace what you take. It's as simple as that.
Good morning, Dr. Harvey.
Hey.
Just had a quick 2 questions for you. First of all, just thank you for such great presentations.
Well,
Very
glad you
informative.
enjoyed it.
I'm an artist myself, art major here, art administration minor. Right now we're going to be hosting the 2014 faculty and staff gallery and the UC. I would like to ask if there's any way we can get one of your pieces in there.
For sure.
If it's not too much to ask of you.
No, I think Nova has bits of art in different places already, so it'll be my pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the second question was, as an artist, I've always looked up to your artwork, and it'd be an extreme honor to do a collab piece with you. So if you would ever consider that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your kind offer. Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, on that note, a lot of questions I get are, do you paint all this yourself? It's quite a common question, and of course I take it the wrong way. You know, like, yeah, how could you think that way? But there are other artists who have assistants and do a lot of the legwork for them. The only person I've ever collaborated with in the true definition of collaboration has been Wyland. I did 5 different walls with him, all in Florida, and we've done 4 other pieces. And you know, it's okay. It's for a cause normally, but I prefer to do my own thing. And I've never done sculptures because of my very good friend Ken Ulberg, whose Mako Shark is at the front of the University Center there, does such a great job. I couldn't compete with him. And I don't have the time. You know, I'm quite happy with my level and where I am and the different media in which I work, so stick with that. Yes?
Hi, good morning, Dr. Harvey. I really enjoyed your presentation. You strike me as a business person, you know, when I'm listening to your presentation, but I also obviously get the sense that you're an artist. And I was just wondering if there was a point, or what was a point in your life when you switched over in your mindset from being an artist into a business person? Right, good question. And I kind of avoided that. Between, I was a university lecturer at the University of the West Indies, teaching marine sciences, and for 2 years I was painting and then, you know, getting enough art together to go and have shows, to mount an exhibition. 2 in Jamaica and then the Fort Lauderdale boat show. No, 1 in Bahamas as well. So you had to build up a certain amount of work. And what I was doing was teaching on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and then flying to Florida Wednesday night and working up here and flying back on a Sunday. And it became too much after a year of doing that. So I think the threshold was signing that first contract with T-Shirts of Florida back in '86. And I said to myself, well, that's when I determined I was now a professional artist. So even though I didn't resign from the university until 1988, that 2-year period there was pretty sticky for me in terms of time allocation. Thank you.
Yep.
Dr. Harvey, just to follow up on that question.
Yes.
In our early video, you mentioned about staying on top of trends. Can you comment on that and how you and your team
do
that with regards to branding?
I'm not the trend master. I make no bones about that. We've hired people on board now who that is their business, to stay abreast of what's happening in both men's and women's fashion, and to try and keep at the front of it. And I have 3 very good people 5 very good people in our company now who, that's all they do. And then the licensees, that is their responsibility as well, more than ours, is to, I think we do a better job than they do, but is to keep ahead of all of that. But one reason why, and I forgot to mention it, in the list of licensees, we signed up a new ladies apparel manufacturer last year, was because the current apparel manufacturer wasn't doing a good enough job in that category. And so they're just incapable of doing it. So I had to find somebody to do it, because not only my wife and my daughter, but all their friends weren't wearing my stuff. And I was pissed off. You know, this is not good enough. So you remember what I said about women spending all the money? Remember that if you're going to business. The women spend 80% of the money that your family spend. So you have to take care of them. You have to take care of business. So that's why that happened, and it's going to be, you know, a long, slow process. But I make no bones about, I know nothing about fashion. So, yeah.
Morning, Dr. Harvey. Thanks for coming today.
Oh, there. Where are we? Over there, yeah. Sorry.
Thanks for coming today, Dr. Harvey.
Hey, thank you for coming.
I'm a member and former president of the oldest and largest dive club in South Florida, Florida Divers Incorporated.
Great.
I was wondering what would be the likelihood of having you or somebody on your local research staff come and speak to our club for about 120 members, 130. But it would also bring in members from other dive clubs from all around.
No, that's doable. If I'm around at the time and it fits in with my schedule, I'm glad to do that. Otherwise, we have all our people dive And so we have Tony Faines, we have Greg over here. Anybody can come down and give you a good talk about what we do.
We're very much into the conservation issue.
Yeah.
We've over the 40 years of our existence, we've partnered with Broward Sheriff's Office to sink several ships, artificial reefs, Mercedes, and several others. And we've got a lot of members who do the
fantastic
the turtle patrol.
Good. So. Well done. Like I said, conservation is good for business too. Hey, thanks guys. You guys leaving? Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. I believe we have a lunch to go to, right?
Hi. I'm very pleased to be here and to get to know you in this presentation.
Thank you.
I have two questions actually. My first question is, what are the challenges that are facing your company?
Okay.
And second question, or you want to answer first?
No, go on.
The second question is, are you planning to expand your business? If so, are you trying to go like to the Northeast or the Midwest? How are you planning to do that?
Two very good questions. There are always challenges, and you probably saw the new logo that we're using, Real Guy, Real Life. There's so much competition now in the apparel business in particular that we lost some of our market share, and we have to face up to that reality and respond. So we're in the middle of doing that right now. And that comes not only with changing your designs and keeping everything fresh, but also having an energetic marketing and advertising campaign. Secondly, expansion. The big question when I did an interview with Florida Trend magazine was, can you take your brand national? And I would like to think I could, but I depend a lot. I'm at the mercy of a lot of other people in this business, the way I've set it up with the licensing programs, where we're not actually totally in control of anything. We make nothing apart from the artwork that I was telling you about. So the artwork is used by different manufacturers who theoretically have fantastic marketing and distribution assets themselves to do what they were hired to do. So to go broader and get away from the coastal lifestyle and the Gulf states and the mid-Atlantic up to New Jersey is about our effective sphere of influence. But to go inland, that's why we signed up with the Collegiate Licensing Commission to do the universities, and with our military. But we give money back to these different causes through that, but it does allow some geographic expansion. And in the Northwest and the West Coast, well, I told you what the Californians are like. They're different. We've tried really hard, and they don't fish as hard as the East Coasters do. They're more into surf and kind of, the easy lifestyle. Is that right?
Yeah.
They're different. So that's always going to be a challenge. And especially as AFCO is based in Southern California, I'd have thought that our sales in California would have expanded over the last 10 years, but they haven't. So it is a challenge.
Thank you.
But we'll get there. All right.
We have time for one last question.
Okay. All right. I know, my stomach is thinking my throat's been cut. Yeah.
Good morning, Dr. Harvey and everyone.
Hey.
I'm really
Hello.
glad that I have the opportunity to
Thank
be
you.
one of the last ones here. I am a fellow Jamaican, and I'm extremely proud to hear how highly you speak of Jamaica. I'm actually visiting here for a performance, which I invite everyone here to come to because you spoke about the Jamaican culture.
Yes.
However, it's called Run for Your Wife, and it's October 4, North Miami Performing Arts Center, so you can get a little bit about Dr. Harvey's culture. And I hope you will take time out of your busy schedule to come as well. The gentleman prior to myself was speaking about your developing the business.
Yes.
Now, I was thinking, you speak so highly about Jamaica. Have you ever thought about establishing an outpost or a restaurant in Jamaica, which I think would be a lovely addition to our culture in Jamaica?
We probably will. We've looked at a couple of options. Just so you know that I worked very closely with Sun Island there for many years. We did a lot of subcontracting of T-shirts throughout the Caribbean based in Jamaica. We're hooking up with the Sandals Foundation to do a lot more outreach and education in Jamaica. That's imminent. So things are starting to happen. It's just logistically, things are very difficult in Jamaica because of the way it is.
Yeah.
So we'll get there.
Great, I'm glad. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Well, I hope you have a great performance.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. Dr. Harvey,
Yes, sir.
first we so appreciate you being here and speaking to the students and all of us. But with all these young people here and a lot of them in business school and things like that, one of the things is how could you speak to them to keep on track, not just for how they're going to make a living, but how they do what they love and stay true to that. And that way you don't feel like you're working. Like you say you still draw or you still paint 10 hours a day or you do that. That's got to be because you love it as well.
Absolutely. And I think I got lucky. And lucky is something that you can't plan for. How do I say this? From the very beginning, the people who started me out, Charlie Foreman and Scott Boyd, were very generous. And, you know, they find other people to help as the business evolved to, because my responsibility is in creation of new work, but to actually run the business side of it. And you have to have trust. You have to have lucky, but I've been able to surround myself with good people. And I don't know how to explain that. It's, do you attract them? Do you look for them yourself? Because I live in another country, but my team up here run the business side of it. Even though, you know, you can communicate so well these days, no matter where you are on the moon. So there's so much luck involved. Sure, I have a unique combination of, you know, scientific knowledge, appreciation of anatomy and ecology, which works for the natural history side of it, and then your work ethic, your productivity. And I see, you know, I try not to compare myself with other artists in my field, but none of them have the work ethic I have. There are many people with more talent, more ability than I'll ever have, but they're slow, they become unfocused, they get distracted, and it's how do you convince these people, and I've tried to help many of them by doing joint shows and so on. How do you tell a guy he's got to work harder, you know? It's difficult. So, I mean, I don't want to call their names, but I can think of half a dozen people I've really reached out to over the 30 years I've been doing this, who are amazing artists. Then you take a look at Kent Ullberg, you know, the sculptor who did the big shark there. I learned from him. What I learned in terms of running an art business was from him. And he had it all figured out way, way back. But he got there through a completely different channel than I did. So, convergent evolution, so to speak. I don't know how to answer the question. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Dr. Harvey, for that inspirational talk. But most importantly, thank you for choosing NSU to be a part of your life and your family's life. We really appreciate you. 2014 Entrepreneur Hall of Fame honoree, Dr. Guy Harvey. You have a presentation to make? I'll ask Paul Salazar to come up and help me with this.
This is nice. Thank you, Paul. Yep. Great.
We'd like to present this to you on behalf of NSU and the Huizenga School of Business and Entrepreneurship. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dean. Hello, Greg. Great.
And I've also taken the liberty to designate this day as Guy Harvey Day on the campus.
Whoa. Thank you. And thank you, President Hambry. I'm sorry I'm not here today. Yep. Thank you very much, everybody. Yep. Yeah, great. Lucky guy.
I can take that for you.